Hello everyone, this is all about Nightmare. Nightmare is a tier 5 unit, and Pierce and Swift. Pierce damage, Swift defense, 185 gold. I'm just going to go through all the things that I think are worth knowing about Nightmare so that you can play it the best you can and get the most out of it. My first tip would be, if you're starting with Nightmare, always go 5 workers by wave 3. With most masterminds, you can only get 4 workers and then you push the 5th during wave 2. But if you're something like Cartel, Chaos, YOLO, then you can get that 5th worker earlier, which makes it a fair amount better, but it's still a good opener even if you can only get the 4 workers and then 5 into 3. There are some scenarios where you can go 6 workers on 3 and get away with it. I'd say the main 2 scenarios are, one, if the first 2 waves are very fast, so if everyone's got openers that are killing the wave really quickly, you can get greedy and just push to 6 workers. If you've got something like Gargoyle as well, you can just put a Gargoyle in the split. If you're only expecting a Snail on 3, maybe Snail King up, just adding a Gargoyle will be enough to either leak small or hold fully. Even if you get 2 snails, it's not that bad. I wouldn't say that happens all that often, but it's just something to take note of. You can push to 6 workers. I might speed this up a little bit. The best pairing with say that just barely held. The best pairing for the 6 worker push is the Seedling, which I'll just show you. That's not Seedling.
Welcome to Nova. Welcome
Okay.
to Nova.
Let's fix this. The reason Seedling's great on 3 is because Nightmare takes 3 hits to kill the wave. It actually leaves them all on 1 HP, so the Seedling AoE just reduces the threshold to 2 hits for the Nightmare. So once it's hit the wave once, its damage is useless, so you don't need to save it. I like to position something like this, and that should do pretty well. Even if you get like a lizard, it should probably kill most of the wave. So doing this, you damage both sides. The Seedlings die, so they've done their job, and then the Nightmare just cleans up as much as it can before it dies. So just the lizard. Leaking just a lizard on 3 6 workers, definitely worth it. There is another one which is quite a lot trickier. I have done occasionally, which is with a mask.
Welcome to Nova.
It's kind of rough because they're not typing wise, they don't complement each other, but it does do what you want in reducing the threshold quite well because it has splash damage. So that's also one to look out for if you're trying to do an aggressive opener. After that, pretty much always going at least 7 workers by wave 5. You can sometimes go to 8 workers depending on your role and how the game's going. But yeah, Nightmare's typically can be quite aggressive with its push. So you've already seen this, but just basic positioning, always left side against the wall is typically the best way to do it. Reason being is your opponent can't force power mercs to go left, but they can always force them to go right. So you want all your strong units on the left, and on the wall is the easiest way to protect the Nightmare so it dies last, which is what you want because it's your carry. I think everyone knows about the Nightmare Butcher pairing. That's one of the best combos that there is. Nightmare being a very high damage dealing and into scaling damage later on pairs perfectly with the lifesteal. So if you see Nightmare Butcher in your role, there's a good chance it's a must pick. But these two alone aren't everything. You definitely still want other supporting units to make it work. I will show a special butcher positioning at the end of this video as a little treat. I was doing some testing earlier and stumbled upon something that doesn't seem intended, definitely not intended, but it is something I will use until it gets patched out, if it ever does. Some other tips I would say, try to avoid building two or more nightmares. I generally only have one when I use nightmare. There are situations where a second one can be quite good if you're getting an ascend on like 6 or 7 and the gold lines up well, or you are planning to do 2 doppels with the butcher. Sometimes that's fine. Generally, I think it's better to have another option, but yeah, just keep that in mind as well. 2 nightmares will be quite weak on like wave 9, for example. I'll get into some role selection choices soon. The other things to keep in mind is just the good thing about picking Nightmare is it's like a focus unit. So you're kind of doing your whole build around it to make it shine, basically. So when you're drafting and when you're deciding what to build, you should always be thinking about what the weaknesses are of this unit and how you can cover those weaknesses. So obviously it's very strong on 1 and 2. Wave 3 it's quite weak. Wave 5 it's weak. 9, etc., etc. So yeah, with keeping that in mind, that's sort of how you draft the units that will go well with it. I might just go through the list of units and I'll point out the ones that I think are very, very good with Nightmare. Obviously, Butcher is amazing. Butcher and Seedling, I think, are the standouts because Seedling lets you push 6 workers every time. I'll cover the Butcher positioning at the end, but before I do that, I'll go through some other positionings for other units that you might have. So the first thing you're looking for is an answer for 3. Some of the best options against Seedling. Gargoyle's amazing. Things that you can put down while being at 5 workers. Typically, Wildshroom you can get out. That's okay. The rough thing about Wildshroom and Gargoyle is that they're not as strong on 5, which is your next weak wave. So if you can build something that helps you hold 3 and then also is strong on 5, that's the ideal. And I think the best unit that does that is the upgraded version of Chain Fist, which is Oathbreaker. The reason Oathbreaker is so good is because it's decent tank value and it has the effect where it hits random units, so that reduces the threshold again for Nightmare to 2-shot the wave. There is a little bit of RNG. I think this could leak the Lizard sometimes, but I think most of the time it just holds. So yeah, Oathbreaker is amazing. If you do end up with something a little more awkward, I don't know, let's say you have Nekomata. This is where things get a little tricky with positioning, because there's something in this game called height diff, and I'll show you what I mean. I usually position Nightmare here, but if you get snailed on 3, the Nightmare will tank quite a lot. I think if I did this, let's just leave it at no stacks. I think this will leak because the Nightmare will die first, and then the cat will just die eventually as well after that. Actually, that was probably perfect. Perfect aggro. Sometimes it's bad. I think cat's a bad example. Like if you have something, okay. If we go back to let's go back to the chain fist example.
To Nova.
You want chain fist to get below half health quickly so that it pops off. But doing it like this, it doesn't pop off fast enough, and the nightmare dies too early. And that leaks. If you want to position it so that the nightmare tanks a little less, you just do it a full. You can just do it a full square up like that. Let's say like this, and then the nightmare won't tank as much. That's obviously leaking, but you get the idea. So yeah, something to keep in mind when you're building your units on 3. And I guess you have to think about it from the start, how you want to position to cover for wave 3 and how much each unit needs to split. But yeah, it's good to be able to position in the first and third column because that allows you to consolidate an aura. Even if you don't have it in your starting roll, you might get it later. So it's good to position just in case. So you can put the butcher there, and then that's already next to it, and then that makes your roll more solid in the early game. It's worth noting what spells are in the game. There's some spells that are insane with Nightmare and with Doppelganger. Some notable ones, Executioner is amazing. It does more, or it executes better for melee fighters. So it'll do more damage with this. It also works with lifesteal. So if you did have Nightmare Butcher and then Executioner, it will actually become insane and just do a lot more damage and healing. Or no, not any, but the single target buffs are generally amazing. Some like Protector doesn't really matter, but Pulverizer, Divine Blessing, Hyper Carry, all amazing on Doppel. Vampire is good because you can get away without the Butcher and still get the good synergy with the lifesteal. Hero, villain, all amazing. Yeah. Things that just give health, like Titan, Protector, even Guardian Angel, I probably would not put on the Doppel. Reason being is it makes it weaker to the power mechs that it's afraid of, which leads me to the next bit about power mechs. Where are they? Yeah, so part of covering the weaknesses of Nightmare is also protecting it against the power mechs that threaten it, which is generally Four Eyes, but also Needler. So you can't exactly just let Doppel be your only damage dealing unit. Like if you had this and just tanks, you will get pretty wrecked by Four Eyes and Needler because they're going to ramp up faster than your Nightmare can against the wave, and then yeah, the Four Eyes will eventually get onto your Nightmare and kill it. So it's good to build some other supplementary damage dealing units. It's also fair to do a little bit of spam to protect against the Four Eyes. Like having lots of little gargoyles can be quite good in the right scenario. Or just, a couple of green devils. Whatever you think makes sense in the moment. And I guess the last big thing to worry about with the Nightmare roll is how you're going to deal with wave 15. Because you not only need arcane defense, but you need magic damage usually to deal with wave 15, which is a tall ask for a Nightmare build. Sometimes you can pull off a Hades. Phoenix is quite good. Yeah, if you can get Phoenix to off tank on wave 15 without dying, that's one of the better options. Yeah, obviously just any unit that can carry you wave 15 is good. You just got to try to keep in mind that Nightmare wants to die last if possible, so I wouldn't be building too many ranged units that don't tank and then therefore don't protect the Nightmare once all the tanks die. Okay, I think that covers pretty much everything. I didn't go too in depth into every individual unit pairing, but I will show you a very interesting Butcher positioning that I discovered yesterday. But if you guys have any questions, if you're listening or watching in the chat, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer them. Just try to keep it about Nightmare if you have any Nightmare questions. Let me just pick a random spell to get rid of that. Okay. All right, this is going to blow your mind. So, when you're playing Nightmare Butcher... Oh. Token is saying Butcher start is the best now. Never, never, never start Butcher. If you have Nightmare Butcher, please, please never start Butcher. It is terrible on wave 3. Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, its power is in its aura, and you're not putting anything around it. Anyway, most of you guys should know that already. I don't care if it holds Snail Wave 2. So does Nightmare. It's not worth. Like, there might be a way to make it work, but you're not getting your Nightmare. If you have the Nightmare, like, you're not getting it out until wave 5, and that's its weak wave. So it's not. Yeah, it just makes it pretty awkward. Start with Butcher, shift for Nightmare on 3. Yeah, you'll be 4 workers still if you're doing that. Genius. Okay, you guys are trolling me. That's fine. I appreciate it. It's funny. Let's do this. So this is like a typical Nightmare Butcher setup. This is probably the best. Well, the most annoying build to deal with. There's a lot of synergies going on here. So we're gonna have a look at wave 5. Yes, definitely playable without champion. Thanks for bringing that up as well. I didn't think about the masterminds. Definitely a good evolve target if you're playing evolution. One of the most perfect champion targets. I do think Doppel is a little bit tricky to use if you don't have Butcher. Like, it misses out on a lot, but it's always a viable opener. It's just something that needs to be very, very heavily built around. So yeah, having Butcher's usually the best way to do it. All right. So something like this is great. This tanks the boss. Let's slow it down a bit. Like, that's easy holding. All right. So how much do we need to break this? If we do like Butcher Robo. It's doing pretty well, but it's not holding. There is a way to hold this. And it's like a really weird interaction with just wave 5 specifically. 8, 11, and then 15. So I'm getting asked about what to do for ranged waves. It can be tricky when you've got like a ranged unit up in front as well. That's also split tanking. I mean, protecting those is just following your typical splitting rules or whatever splitting like positioning you normally do to protect those. But um, I don't think. I mean, typically Nightmare's in the back, so it's always protected anyway. There's probably not much to it. Um, Again, 8, 11, and 15, just a matter of making sure you have enough damage. Sometimes one Nightmare on 8 is not enough to deal with the wave if the rest of your units are bad damage. So you might have to build a second Nightmare in those scenarios if you're getting pressured on wave 8. But just having a solid arcane tank can be enough to just let the Nightmare deal with the wave. Okay, I see what you mean. There is a technique to drag things to the middle, which is just putting a tier 1 unit like somewhere there. Then when you're on a ranged wave, let's just upgrade that. Everything sort of goes towards the center. I think that's most useful in with a build where you've got like AoE damage in your role, which you might not have in a Nightmare role, so it's not too important. If you're expecting a big power merc send like an ogre on wave 8, I would probably try to ignore it. So I would just have a raised split so that the ogre goes right, and I try to kill most of the wave with the Nightmare before, or like a pack leader. Like I'd probably do something like this. It's really tricky because, I mean, this is obviously just getting wrecked with this value against an ogre, but it's a question of, do you think you can actually kill the power merc that they're sending, right? Are they sending an ogre? You're not killing it anyway. Are they sending a GK? You kind of have to ask yourself those questions depending on how much Mythium you think they have. And then based on that, decide if you want to raise the split, if you want to, yeah, or if you want your main damage side to actually go into that unit to try to kill it first. And if you have other units that help kite that unit, like if I had, if I had masks, that would make raising the split better. Oh shoot! Okay, that wasn't. It didn't actually get kited, but yeah, you get the idea. Does that answer your question? It's a really tough one because, yeah, again, it highly depends on your build and what you expect them to send. That's a good question. I generally don't upgrade the Nightmare until wave 10. There are cases where I don't even upgrade it. I don't even upgrade it till like 11 or 12 if I want to push hard and I like don't have. I can hold without upgrading it. Like if I just need to get ahead Jeff, that can be enough to hold wave 10. But yeah, I'd say like 80% of the time I'm getting the double on 10. There are cases where you can get it even earlier. I would say only if you've got things like Graal and Skeleton to sell to get that. But I would only get it if I actually had the Butcher, because it's honestly quite weak if you get it too early, because it wants tanks. to get its value. But if you at least have the Butcher, then it's already, you know, pretty big powerhouse having it that early. All right, feel free to keep asking questions, but I'm gonna stop stalling and show you the build.
To Nova.
Disclaimer: this is really weird. Also, it's not practical if you're planning to put something in your role like an Aziria for 15, because you do have to build quite high up for this to work. I'm calling this the C5 Butcher. Now this interaction only works on wave 5. Wave 5 is actually unique in that the boss of the wave is like it positions itself like a tank. So you can't send. I mean, we all know this. You can't send a tank mercenary in front of the wave 5 boss, right? There's no other wave like that. This is the only wave where you can sort of guarantee that the boss, the unit you want tanks the boss on wave 5. I like Pulverizer more than Hypercarry. I think Hypercarry is a bit overkill. Well, it's not overkill. The problem with Hypercarry is, I think the stronger side of it is the lifesteal, and the lifesteal falls off around wave 15-ish onwards. The lifesteal becomes less relevant, so you don't really get much out of it necessarily. It'd be very, very rare to have both of those in the same game anyway, but if I had a choice, I'd probably pick Pulverizer over Hypercarry and just use that power spike to push harder to get an econ advantage over the Hypercarry anyway. If for whatever reason you have the Nightmare, you have a doppelganger without any lifesteal, then I probably would pick the Hypercarry, yeah, just to give it some lifesteal. But yeah, that's a good question. Okay, back to wave 5. The example I showed you before, it's frustrating because the Nightmare has lifesteal and it's not tanking. Everything's tanking for it, and then so it's wasting its potential to be healing while it's dealing its damage from the start of the wave. So I was playing around with some builds. Again, like I said, this is the C5 Butcher. Let's show you what this looks like.
Welcome to Nova.
And we'll do the send I did earlier just so you can see how strong this is. So I have the same value. I don't know why, and I've figured out the pattern, but with this positioning, the Butcher will tank the boss, and then, I know, right? It looks really weird. The Butcher will tank the boss, and then these units behind the Butcher will tank the rest of the wave. You guys ready? Let's slow it down. Like, that is a crazy difference. I'll show you some more about this. There's more to it. A couple of things. If you don't have a split, any power mercs they send are going to end up on the Nightmare in this spot. So if they do send a Brute like this, right, it's going to land there. Using the split allows you to pull the power merc sends to the right, which helps the Nightmare tank less and survive. You can see this is a little bit of a problem. But it's the reason this is also so good is if either of these units die, the Butcher's actually still considered frontline in front of those, so that the wave will then start attacking the butcher after that unit dies. This doesn't work if you put it somewhere else. There might be one other positioning which is even higher up that does work as well. But if I go down even half a tile and try this, it doesn't work. Like, this is how the wave should aggro. If you look at this, this is what you'd expect to happen. Everything's going on the butcher. Alright, now let me show you something even crazier. So we're going back to this. You guys have seen this. Now, this only works. It could. I mean, it makes sense for Harpy or Boar, but they typically don't synergize with Nightmare anyway, so it's not ideal. It goes deeper. Ready? So this only works for units that have an aura. So if I replace that with something else, you don't get the same aggro. I don't know how I discovered it. I was getting really like, I was just testing a lot of different positionings around. This I knew you guys would love this. This only works with an aura. Now, if I put an aura on this unit, if I put Vampire on this unit, guess what happens? It works again. I did have a split. You don't have to have the split. I was just saying it's good to have a split to redirect some of the power mercs you might get. This is an aura-only positioning. It works, and it only works with auras. It doesn't work with... Oh gosh, where am I? It doesn't work with... Like, if I gave it villain, it doesn't work. It has to be an aura. My theory is that there's something weird going on with the animation of the aura. Because when the wave starts, Butcher, you actually see this little symbol pop up above the Butcher's head, showing that it's giving Vampire. I think it like stalls the Butcher so it doesn't walk straight away. I don't know. And then the timing of that with like the Wave 5 Scorpion boss like walking towards it while it's casting its animation, I don't know. I can't explain it, but Ocean Templar is the same. I've tested it. Any aura unit. Any aura unit. It does this weird thing. Okay, let me go deeper. I think this is my favorite one. There is another one to keep in mind though. Antler was a weird one. I think Antler did partially only. I know Antler did some. Yeah, no, Antler's the same. Antler's the same. Well, it's not really more depth. It's more of like an alternative positioning. I like this one. There is another one which you can consider depending on what your other unit is here. Wildstream's a good example. So if you do this, then these will each share half of the wave, like the back half of the wave. If you do it here, if you do it here, the boss will actually go on the Wildshroom, and the rest of the wave will land on the Butcher. So the boss is... Oh, actually, it's tanking the boss and 2 creeps. I don't think it always does that. I think it's because of health with Vamp Aura front unit out heal first hit, so split works. That can also work, and you can put the nightmare here, and then that gets you another positioning, like another split. So the nightmare tanks half, the butcher tanks half, and then this tanks the boss. This one I think is a bit too risky though, because it makes your nightmare more vulnerable to the sends if you're putting it up there. Like if they double robo you, the nightmare will just tank both robos and die. So that's the problem with that one. But yeah, the most solid one is the one I showed you at the start, which is the butcher tanking the boss, and then whatever else you have tanking the other half. If you've got gold for a split, I recommend Q9. That allows the nightmare to still tank a decent amount, but doesn't tank the power mercs. Yeah. So if we get double roboed here, we should be fine. So there you have it. New Nightmare Butcher tech. It's a little sad that it only works with Butcher, because that's like the only reasonable aura you can get at that stage of the game. Oh man. I went a little further, as you would expect, to see what goes on with wave 6, like what you should do after this. You can actually get insane splitting by doing this, just adding to here. If you get a single tank send, for some reason you get like an amazing 3-way split. So this is tanking, the butcher's tanking. Okay, never mind, that wasn't tanking. It did happen once. I don't know what the send has to be, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to just build normally after that. I guess you do lose out on a butcher slot, but honestly, that's fine. Not DT. You think it's a snail? Either way, you still get splitting by doing that anyway. So it's good to just put something there if you can later on. Oh, without the no tank. Maybe it's like this. Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, you get a 3-way split if they don't send a tank. Like, that's disgusting. So there you go. I look forward to seeing someone abuse this. I want to abuse it soon if I can. Again, there's quite a few caveats. Like, you don't actually want any sort of ranged units in this build at all, because you can't make them split tank. I guess you could kind of make it work if you put them in the split, and then they tank a small amount of the wave or something weird, but I want to use this in a real game. I'm so sorry. Of course I'll use it in ranked. I'd be crazy not to. If I get Nightmare Butcher, I'm definitely doing that. Okay. Well, that's the end of my my nightmare guide. They might patch that last bit out. So just check the date of the video when you're watching, but everything else should still apply. All right, let's go back to ranked. Enough of this nerdy stuff.